Det var jo de årene da en hadde nok så sterke indre brytninger. Indre brytninger.
Hei og velkommen til Noen har snakket sammen. Mitt navn Aksel Fjellavli.
Og mitt navn Fredrik Mortvedt.
Supervikaren tilbake.
Jeg hopper litt inn her fra tid til annen.
Kiel på kurs og kommer tilbake neste uke med friske ark, eller hva man sier.
Ja, altså i denne episoden så skal vi ta for oss valget i Tyskland, som nettopp har vært. Det var nå i helgen. Olaf Scholz var fra det sosialdemokratiske partiet, ligger nå an til å bli ny kansler og tar over Angela Merkel, som har altså vært forbundskansler siden 2005. Det må jo kunne kalles et brakvalg for sentrum-venstre, hvor sosialdemokratene går opp til 26% fra 21% ved forrige valg, og hvor de grønne gjør sitt beste valg noensinne med 15% oppslutning.
Jeg tenkte, det jo ikke alle som hører på sikkert som fullt inne i tysk politikk, og vi skal ha en tysk gjest som vi skal introdusere om litt, men jeg tenkte det var greit å bare ta en sånn kjapp oppsummering av partiene bare før vi starter da. Så SPD, det det sosialdemokratiske partiet, tilsvarer cirka Arbeiderpartiet i Norge. CDU det kristendemokratiske partiet, som litt sånn mix mellom Høyre og KrF, og så har de også et samarbeid, formalisert samarbeid med et annet kristendemokratisk parti, som CSU fra Bayern. De kalles også De Union til sammen. Og CSU ja, det mye det samme som CDU, men de et knepp mer konservative. Og så De Grønne, som jo parallelt til De Grønne i Norge, men de skiller seg kanskje litt gjennom å være et parti som har styringserfaring også fra nasjonalt nivå. FDP, det liberale partiet, søsterpartiet til Venstre i Norge, men en god del mer, hva jeg skal kalle det, businessorientert, og kan kanskje sies å ha en dash av de mer næringslivsorienterte delene av Høyre og FrP i seg også. Og så har du jo til sist da, av de store partiene, så det AFD som det høyrepopulistiske partiet. Selvfølgelig mest lik FrP av de norske partiene, men samtidig så de jo mye mer ute i kulda enn FrP i Norge, åpenbart på grunn av den historien de har med ytre høyre i Tyskland da.
Ja, så med oss her i dag for å forstå litt mer av det tyske valget, så har vi Jan Engels med på link fra Berlin. Han altså rådgiver i den tyske tenketanken Friedrich Ebert Stiftung. Det altså en søstertenketank til Agenda i Tyskland.
Jan Engels, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you very much for the invitation.
So we have just had the elections in Germany, and there is a shift from, decades of Angela Merkel to more of a center-left coalition. Why do we see this shift now? What has changed?
Actually, this was the first time in the history of our Federal Republic that a chancellor is not running anymore. So this is a totally new situation, or was a new situation, because normally the chancellor is one of the candidates and had a bonus to run for. On the other hand, what was also new that we have six, or if you take into account the Bavarian CSU, seven parties already in parliament who wanted to be re-elected. And this was very new as well. And then, of course, the corona pandemic, which changed the way of doing a campaign. So this quite new, and we knew that there's a lot of volatility, and that probably already with 20% plus X, it's possible to become the strongest party. Because in former times, you always had at least one very strong party trying to find a junior partner, but this time there were a little bit more than middle-sized parties. And this is why we will need probably 3 or 4 parties to form a government, which is also new to Germany, to our political system.
I wonder how important are the candidates versus the policies in German politics? I mean, if you look at the percentage for the CDU, there was a big reduction in percentage after Angela Merkel quitted and was replaced by Armin Laschet. How important is Olaf Scholz as a person for the win of the SPD?
He's very important, but on the other hand, if you look in German media, they often say, okay, SPD should say thank you to Olaf Scholz because he was winning the election, not the party, not the SPD. And I think this is not true as well, because yes, it was a lot about the candidates and the question, who do you trust to be a good chancellor? Who should run this country in times of corona pandemic, but also in times of climate change and many other big challenges we have to stay on top. And this test, the other 2 main candidates failed, and so the focus was on Olaf Scholz, yes. But on the other hand, there were also other topics in the election, like social topics, and there was a good offer. And there are questions, polls out who were asking, what was more important for you, the program or the candidate? And yes, we saw there were some 30-something percentage for Olaf Scholz, which is a high number, the same numbers we only saw for Gerhard Schröder many years ago. But on the other hand, it was 40-something% for the program. So still the people said the program was more important than the candidate.
But if we look at the polls, when they have asked the German voters what were their most important topics this election, the welfare system scores were very high on that. What is it that the left wants to do now with the German welfare state?
First, on what was high, you're right. On the other hand, we have one poll which is asked every month, and they are asking what is the biggest problem in Germany. And the response in the last weeks and months was Corona, or it was the environment or climate change. And social issues were much lower on the agenda. But we saw with other questions like which topics are the most important for you in your decision to vote, that those social issues or the pension question was on top. And there the SPD had a lot to offer. One of the main claims was a minimum a wage of 12 euros, because in the moment it's below 10 euros. But also it was about at which age you can retire or you have to retire. And there it was the SPD saying this will stay as it is and you don't have to work longer in order to retire.
So this is, do you think this is the reason why the left did a good election this year?
Well, I think that especially after the corona pandemic, when we saw the problems in the health system and that the people who are running our country don't get to respect, but also don't have good working relations. And respect was one of the main claims by Olaf Scholz, saying that everybody in our society should be respected. And we have a problem with respect, and especially those who are making our country run, they should have decent wages, and that he will work for it. So this 12 euro minimum wage would be beneficial for 10 million Germans. So of course this was a big issue, especially because the SPD also was staying on this line and having this as one of the central points of their campaign.
You mentioned minimum wages, and coming from a Nordic perspective, it is interesting to see this as a political topic. I mean, from the perspective of Nordic unions, for example, you would prefer having wages being bargained rather than set from the political system. is these kind of policies uncontroversial among German unions?
This argument was used especially by the conservatives, saying that this would be not in the line of having an agreement with the trade unions, but like the general trade union, the DGB in Germany, was saying that they are also in favor of 12 euros minimum wage, and they were saying if we do it with what we have in our laws with a commission, this would take too long and too much time. So they were actually also in favor of this proposal.
Another topic that is quite, if you look at German politics, one thing that is for sure, when you look at maps of how people voted, for example, the eastern part of Germany stands out, as it has done since the end of the split of the country. But what is different in this election is that the SPD is winning in the east and being the biggest party on the left in the east, whereas the Die Linke, the more radical left, used to be the largest party on the left. What is different with Eastern Germany now and with the Social Democrats in relation to Eastern Germany?
That's a very good question. We were looking on the numbers split for the western part and the eastern part of Germany. And what you could see, interestingly, that most of the parties, they are still kind of divided. So the Conservatives and the Green Party are very strong in our western regions. And on the east, you have the AfD, the radical right party, and Die Linke, the left one. They have their strongholds only in the east. And there are only two parties in parliament who have more or less the same numbers in both parts, and this is the FDP, the Liberals, and the SPD. But the SPD this time they won more in the eastern region, so there were 9.9 percentage points. We were having a gain, and I think this is a little bit due that we have that we try to be present there and to work also on the regions where we had not so good results, and we have front runners like Manuela Schwesig in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. Well, she's also the prime minister there, but she's a person, a politician seen in the whole country and very positive. So this is one part. On the other hand, you also can see that there is that most of the parties are not that strong. So we won also many of the regions there by 20 plus something percentage points. So there's really a small margin between the parties, and especially the conservatives are fighting with the AfD, the radical right, who's quite strong. To come to your question on Die Linke, they were one of the big losers of this election. And my guess is this is due to two facts. The one is the conservatives were running a campaign at the end against a red-green government. So like saying there will be the socialists in government and this will be a huge threat to our country. So this, I think, was mobilizing their voters, but also maybe a little bit harming the left. And this is the second reason, because probably many realize that there won't be Die Linke, the left, in the government, and not because of social issues, but because of their foreign policies, which are not in the line of our governing. So this was very unlikely that they will be in government. So many voters who normally were voting for Die Linke probably decided to vote for the SPD because they wanted to see like things like the 12 euro minimum wage and so on being realized, and with Olaf Scholz having a good chance becoming the chancellor. So this was the safe bet, I would say, to vote for.
Mm. Well, it's very interesting to hear that since we just had an election in Norway, that there's some similarities between Germany and Norway with sort of the scare of the red-green government. We certainly had that here, but could you just explain to us how the relationship with Die Linke and SPD is?
We have it on the Bundesländer level, the regional states. There you can see all combinations more or less possible, but with the exception of the AfD, the radical right. So in Thüringen, Die Linke is having the minister president, the SPD is in government, but also like in Berlin, where elections also this Sunday, but so far we had the red-green government in Berlin. So they're kind of corporations working together, having a regional government. There talks, red-green talks all the time, also on the federal level, and those three parties are very close if it's about cultural issues, but also economic issues. So in the social area, but the main problem is, as I said, the foreign policies, and they're first that Die Linke wants to leave the NATO, and they're against military actions outside the borders of Germany, and also they're a little bit skeptical on the European Union and, not proposing to leave it, but to change it radically. And those 3 points are really outside mainstream, not only of the political parties in Germany, but also with the whole public. Yeah.
You mentioned the Greens also. I just wondered that they do their best election in history with 15-16%. How do they differ on the climate issue, which I assume is among the most important topics for them? How do they differ from the rest?
Their campaign was on that they want to have a new start in Germany, and that the SPD and the conservatives in government, they are the symbol of a standstill. So it's not moving because of them, and if you vote us, then we will make a radical shift. And so this, of course, works with people who are really in favor of green issues, I would say. But as you said, and this is why they have really their best result ever. But on the other hand, at the evening, they were also disappointed because they wanted to be having the chancellor and being in the first place, and they came out only on the third place. So it's like winning a bronze medal on the Olympic Games. So but they were seen as the gold medalists before. So this is quite disappointing for them. And I think this was one point was that many asked them, okay, are they ready to be the chancellor? Are they ready to lead this country? And I think many then realized, because also there were some mistakes in the campaign of the Greens, so they're good. They have important issues. They should be in government, but they should not be in the lead. And then this was why Olaf Scholz was seen. He always was saying, yes, we want to have to change our country, but we should do this with a plan. We should know this will be the biggest change of our economy we have seen the last 200 years. And when we want to do this, and we want to do this, then we have to do it with a plan, and we should know what should be the first step, and we should be sure that nobody is left behind, that we stay together as a community. And I think that this was a message many more people liked, as the Green message of, okay, let's change everything, and we need a new start.
Mm-hmm. What would you say is the main policies for the Greens to form a new government?
As I said, the problem is that we will need a coalition of 3 or 4 parties. And so the 2 options on the table is we call it the Jamaica coalition, which is the Conservatives, the Green, and the Liberals. So that's the colors of the parties. Or the other one is the traffic light coalition with the SPD in the lead. And the point is that the liberals are much closer to the conservatives on economic issues, so they are in favor of a Jamaica coalition, and the Green Party, and especially their basis, is much closer to social issues, so they want to have the traffic light coalition. What is interesting that now the two smaller parties, the Liberals and the Greens, had already their first meetings because they are kind of the kingmakers. So they want to set the agenda and discuss under them where they think is which option, which coalition would be the best for a modernization government of Germany. From our point of view, it's hard to believe that we will end up in a Jamaica coalition, which, to be honest, was seen as the most likely outcome before the election. But as the union came on only second place, having the worst results ever, and also now after the campaign, it's still very unclear what is their programmatic view, what they want to do, why they want to be in government. And I think this is with Olaf Scholz much clearer and probably much easier really to find an identity for such a government, which will be very complicated to form because the liberals are not on the same programmatic road as the Greens and the Social Democrats.
Do you see a traffic light coalition as the most likely outcome at the moment?
Well, it's early to call, but I'm quite optimistic because I actually don't see who on the side of the conservatives should actually negotiate such a coalition. Yeah, there's Laschet is still running, but quite weak. So more or less everybody is waiting for him stepping down. Of course, Markus Söder, the Bavarian prime minister, would be there and probably would be ready to negotiate, but he doesn't have the mandate. So this is quite a chaotic situation with the conservatives. So, and I don't think they will sort it out very soon because the problem is not Armin Laschet, actually. The problem is that they didn't make a smooth transition from Angela Merkel to a successor.
You have mentioned a couple of economic policies that were important for the SPD in the election campaign, but I wonder more broadly, what kind of changes in policies are we to expect after this election results?
Okay, it really depends on now the coalition building, so this will be very interesting to find the kind of story or identity of such a traffic light coalition. This will be very hard because I could give you easily some answers if we would have a red-green government. Yeah, then it would be really clear. But if you take like also the European dimension, the European Union, how to change it and what to develop, so there are quite different views, especially on the financial dimension by those three parties. The central messages, as I said, were the respect issue of Olaf Scholz, but it was also Europe, and of course, economic issues for saying, yes, we need a transformation, but we need a transformation which is smooth, that we can stay a strong and prosper country.
Jan Engels, our time is quickly running out, so I just want to say thank you for participating in our podcast.
Thank you for having me, and all the best for your work.
Til slutt så bruker vi å ta med noen anbefalinger inn i helga eller inn i resten av uka, eller når folk finner på å høre på denne podcasten. Fredrik?
Ja, jeg har så vidt fått åpnet den nye Jonas Balls-boken om streik. Den er fryktelig interessant. Det er vel 650 sider, tenker jeg. Et ordentlig verk, men den har fått veldig god kritikk. Så det sett i lys av å være på venstresiden og hvor viktig den fagbevegelsen har vært for det moderne Norge, så tenker jeg dette en utrolig viktig bok å kunne ha litt innsikt i hvordan det moderne Norge har blitt til. Så.
Ja, for det liksom en historisk gjennomgang, jeg har skjønt.
Ja, det det. Det den fagbevegelsen og streikens historie i Norge.
Og så kan vi vel legge til, sånn som vi bruker å gjøre når vi snakker om Respublika sine bøker, at det et forlag som under samme tak som Agenda, så alle forbehold tatt om at vi på samme lag. Fra min side så tenkte jeg å anbefale en podcast-episode i en podcast som heter The Brunigs, en amerikansk podcast med en fyr som jobber i en amerikansk tenketank, og kona hans som jobber i Washington Post, det vel nå. Denne episoden her heter Matt Solo Episode on the Welfare State and MMT. Så her vi godt nedi grøten. Altså MMT, det har vi jo hatt episode om her, som jeg har hørt på mens jeg var ute i pappaperm, som du og Tiril lagde. Matt vel, jeg vet ikke, ganske kritisk til MMT egentlig i den episoden her på et eller annet vis. Men
han sier vel at de har ikke funnet på noe nytt, og de mener egentlig bare det han allerede mener.
Ja, typ. Men det som var interessant, eller som gjorde at jeg har lyst til å anbefale episoden, at han har en veldig kul take på velferdsstaten, som litt sånn et perspektiv som jeg syntes var fornuftig, og det jo at mange diskuterer velferdsstaten som om at det viktigste med den omfordeling mellom rik og fattig. Men det egentlig bare et hyggelig biprodukt. Det viktigste med velferdsstaten å omfordele mellom de som i jobb og de som ikke i jobb. Altså enten om det ordninger for barn, ordninger for pensjonister, ordninger for studenter, ulike livsfaser der man ikke i jobb, så trenger man et effektivt system for å sørge for at man har en akseptabel livskvalitet uansett. Så dette høres jo åpenbart ut når jeg sier det, men likevel så syntes jeg det var et godt formulert perspektiv fra hans side. Så der har du den. Så gjenstår det bare å si på gjenhør. Ha det bra!
Ha det!